This week on Dance of Joy, we talk about discontinued breath mints, mishmashed ethnic attire, and going on tour with our forthcoming two-person musical. All that and more as we watch Season 7, Episode 5 of our favorite 80s hit sitcom, Perfect Strangers. Hello and welcome to Dance of Joy, a Perfect Strangers rewatch podcast. My name is Sophia. I am one of your hosts, and joining me is your other host and my brother. What's up, Imran?
Hello, listener. Hi, sister. How's it going?
Hi, brother. It's going well. How are you?
I'm good. This week's episode reminded me, myself, that I've been a king a couple of times.
You've been a king?
Sometimes it's good to be a king. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes
you
it
have
is.
been a king. You were King Herod.
I was King Herod in our college's production of Jesus Christ Superstar.
Amazing.
Then,
so cool.
After that, we did Pippin. I was the king in Pippin as well. Pippin's father is the king.
Is that everything has its season?
That's Pippin, yes.
Everything has its
But we've talked about my brief theater career in high school and college, and I always got typecast as either
as a king,
the king, or a preacher. Like it's kind of the same character.
Yeah,
it's always the same thing.
You must have had a very kingly presence. I never thought so, but
I don't know.
These
but I'll tell you
directors
what. Yes, and
apparently did.
King Herod was a lot of fun. That was a great song to do.
Yeah,
I had like silvery jacket and shorts on, sparkly.
Were y'all on
shades.
Skates in that show?
No.
Oh. Fun fact to the listeners, I have also been in a production of Jesus Christ Superstar. Imran and I have both been
separate productions.
In separate productions.
We have to do the same production.
Mine was Skokie Community Theater. I don't even know if that's still a thing, but Theater 219 in Skokie, it happened in the summer times usually, and it was the summer after I finished high school before I
Listen, you know what I'm going to do? I'll book the room in the library. We're going to do Jesus Christ. Yes, we will play all the parts.
Roles. Oh
yes.
my God, that would be so
we'll
fun.
Just go back and forth and play every role.
Y'all, listeners.
Would you go pay to see that,
Let
listener?
us know if you would pay like even $5 to see that. We'll take it.
I feel like between
Is anyone interested in this? We could do it right now.
Yes.
We could do it on a podcast. Between us, we've
Those
got
effects.
it.
We can do it right now. We went back and forth.
Because, fun fact, we're not even on the episode yet. Fun fact, we loved this show as kids.
It's great.
Listen, Imran and I were two little Muslim kids, children of immigrants in a predominantly Jewish community.
Who love Christmas and Jesus Christ.
Our two favorite musicals growing up, both of which we can recite word for word to this day, were Fiddler on the Roof and Jesus Christ Superstar.
You know what? It's because they haven't made a good Islamic musical.
No, that's not allowed. Nothing. That's not allowed.
Once you get one of those, we'll put it in. It'll be our favorite too. But in the meantime, why am I talking about being a king? Because we are at Season 7, Episode 5 of Perfect Strangers, titled Weekend at Ferdinand's.
Weekend at Ferdinand.
Still doesn't explain why I was talking about kings. It'll all be clear.
It does,
soon.
because if you're a fan of Meposian culture and this show at all,
yes,
you'll recognize that name Ferdinand.
King Ferdinand.
As the King of Mepos. Now, Weekend at reminds me of something else.
Yeah, this is absolutely a play on the classic 80s comedy Weekend at Bernie's from 1989. I think they made a couple of these, famously starring your Andrew McCarthy and Jonathan Silverman. Whatever happened to Silverman? I don't know. McCarthy did a couple of things, but they were the 80s darlings.
And this movie, Weekend at Bernie's, we might as well just say it now.
Yes, what was it about? What is Weekend at Bernie's famous for?
Weekend at Bernie's is famous for a dead guy who everybody else in the film pretends is alive and like marionettes him around somehow.
A dead guy being schlepped around.
They have like a party at his house and everything, a big weekend.
And nobody ever figures out that this is a dead guy because they're moving his arms.
There's more specifics to the plot line, but that's the part you need to know.
That's the gag that's going to be brought up here, as if you would open the TV guide and read the description for this episode, it would have said, Larry unwillingly becomes the monarch of Mepos after the visiting King Ferdinand falls dead in his arms.
What?
So you can imagine a lot of hilarity and wackiness will happen.
Yes. And we have in this episode our two cousins as the cast, Bronson Pinchot and Marklyn Baker playing Balky and Larry. We also have brief appearance by Lydia and Mr. Gorpley, played by Belita Marino and Sam Anderson, notably missing for the second week in a row after purchasing this house altogether.
And getting married.
Are the significant others of Balky
they all
and
live
Larry.
together. Where are the girls?
Where are the girls?
Jennifer and Marianne. Maybe they were in the upstairs. Maybe they were upstairs the whole time.
Maybe the house is huge.
It's a mansion.
Maybe they were there, but
they could have been in like the West Wing, and
maybe they were washing their hair all weekend or something. And we have some guest cast that we'll talk about as we get to them. This episode aired on October 18th, 1991, two days after my 12th birthday.
And you can watch Perfect Strangers on Amazon Prime Video if you want to purchase the episodes or seasons. That's where you're going to find them. You can watch along, play along.
All right, let's get into Weekend at Ferdinand's.
Bernie's? Oh, Ferdinand's.
Not Bernie's. Yeah. Act 1, and we open in the living room of their brand new house. Remember last week Balky was stuffing
teddy bears
in this big living room.
And now it's all decorated weird with
now it's all
vegetables.
Decorated with Mimposian, how there's always like produce hanging on the walls.
Mimposian garland, which consists of like
dried
garlic
peppers and garlic.
It's not even dry. It's like fresh carrots and yellow peppers.
It's an agricultural society.
Yeah.
They have to use vegetables for decorations.
There's produce hanging everywhere. Why?
Because
Balky's all dressed up.
And Balky's all dressed up in a Mimposian suit.
Yeah.
And he's very impatient. He's calling up the stairs to cousin Larry, who's upstairs, and he says, come on. We have a lot to do before King Ferdinand gets here.
Oh, boy. King Ferdinand's coming. That's
King Ferdinand is coming for some reason to Chicago and to their home. And Larry comes down the stairs. Yeah. I said this to you earlier. I'm like, is Balky the only Mimposian in America or in the Midwest or in Chicago where he is the one who has to receive?
I think he's the only Mimposian in the continental U.S. at this point.
He's a prominent guy. I mean, we knew that from before because they asked him to negotiate the sale of the country and all this other stuff.
He's a big deal on Mipos.
So anyway, he's a big enough deal to receive the king at their home. We see Larry come down the stairs, and he's dressed in like a regular Larry suit.
Yeah.
Jacket and tie. And Balky is like, wait, you didn't wear the outfit I laid out for you on your bed.
Oh, he laid him
Go
on
and change. He's like, come on, go upstairs and change. And he's like, come on, bushy.
I love that. Come on, bushy. I'm going to start using that when people are like, let's go, come on, kids, bushy. Bushy. What? Okay.
And Larry's like, no, he's not having it. He said, I let you decorate the house with a salad bar. Okay, so Larry is so disparaging, even as they're preparing to meet royalty, the highest official in
the king. Mipos. He's like, whatever, there's salad on the walls.
I agreed to let you decorate the house with a salad bar, and I agreed to let you have a reception here for King Ferdinand, but
that's what's happening.
But I am not dressing up like a snout merchant.
Snout merchant, which is either he's being condescending or Balky actually had a snout merchant outfit.
And Balky goes, okay, how about just the loincloth?
He's like, no.
So that's
just
part of his outfit.
Would be hilarious.
Which is funny because Balky's not wearing a loincloth, but or maybe he is underneath his
the snout merchant has to wear a loincloth. And yes, Balky also explains he's coming to participate in what he says is a parade. He's saying he's coming to be a grand marshal of the parade.
It's a special occasion.
It's a very special occasion, but Larry tells us that he's just going to be watching down State Street with a bunch of cows. That's a real street. I like that.
State Street is a real Chicago iconic street. But I've never seen cows on State Street.
Well,
not since the days of Mrs. O'Leary.
Well, Balky explains that he's leading the livestock liberation parade.
He's going to come to Chicago and free all the cows.
Remember the cow sculptures? That's what it reminded me of. There's cow sculptures downtown. That
maybe we have seen cows on State
there's
Street.
cows in Chicago are synonymous. Like that's the gag, right? With Miss O'Leary. Anyways, that's why he's coming. He's coming for his parade, but Balky has more important things to tell Larry as he sits them down to explain the official Mimposian greeting to royalty. How does that go?
He says it's very important. Meeting royalty protocol must be followed.
Okay.
So this is how it goes. He says, the king will come to the door and he will say in his most regal voice, knock, knock.
Okay.
And then Larry, as head of the household, is supposed to say, who's there? And then the king will say, the king.
Uh-huh.
And then Larry's supposed to say, the king who?
Uh-huh.
And then the king will say, Gesundheit. And then we laugh. He's like, okay, so laugh. Let me hear you laugh. And Larry's just looking at him like, what? Also, I don't even get that. Like, the king who is supposed to sound like a sneeze.
Chew. It's a stretch. It's a stretch.
Yeah,
but then Balky goes, Larry fakes a laugh and he goes, not exactly the big yuck I was looking for. But then I love this line. He goes, then again, I don't have the king's delivery. So maybe it'll be funnier when the king says it, but that is a stretch for a knock-knock joke.
Yeah, that is a stretch for this big gag.
And then suddenly we hear a voice outside the door go, knock, knock. And Larry's like, the king's early.
And Balky gets all nervous. He's like, oh my God, he's early. I haven't even had the chance to spray the room with welcoming goat fragrance.
That's a nice little detail. You guys spritz the goat smell around so he feels at home.
And so Balky starts to panic a little. Larry calms him down. He's like, it's going to be fine. Come on. And they both walk over to the door. And Balky's like, oh God, oh God, oh God. Here we go. Here we go. And Larry's like, it's fine. Okay. They stand right inside the door. They walk up to the door, but they don't open it. And then again, we hear the voice outside go, knock, knock. And then Larry goes,
Who's there?
And the voice says, the king. And Larry says, the king who? And then from outside the door, we hear there's like a brief beat of pause, and then we hear Gesundheit.
Then you hear the king laugh, and Balky
big boisterous laugh, and then Balky laughs, and Larry just kind of laughs.
He's like, ha
Balky cracks up.
Yeah, Balky loves
hard.
the joke. So Larry opens the door, and in steps King Ferdinand of Mypos. We're actually getting to meet King Ferdinand of Mypos.
Finally, and what does he look like?
Portly, kind of round, balding man. With this incredible cape on and this vest and these purple pants and
it's like a
boots
purple,
with tassels,
like velour, suit,
cape that matches his purple pants.
Yeah,
and embroidered red and black vest.
The vest. So the vest, okay, yeah, and he had this cape that's all like embroidered and tasseled, and he throws it off onto the side.
He just throws it on the floor.
And then he's got this black and red embroidered vest, and that vest to me seems very like Pashtun, something you would see in parts of Pakistan or Afghanistan.
Yeah, yeah.
And this is the first where I started to wonder, and it gets. I wondered again later in the episode, but seeing this, I started to wonder when they were doing the costuming for all this Mypos stuff, did they just like go around and find anything that looks ethnic from different places?
Absolutely.
All different kinds of ethnic things.
We'll see later when more Myposian people show up. It's like they got a Russian babushka hat and a different thing.
I've talked about things that seem very Uzbek before.
So just anything from that middle of the planet that we're like,
well,
this
no,
one.
it's like a span. Like,
I guess it is. It's like
all
that,
different.
Yes.
They found anything colorful and ethnic,
Myposian
vaguely ethnic
culture is very just mismatched.
It's a conglomerate.
Yes, it's everything.
So anyway, he walks in and he like takes like a kingly stance with his hands on his hips, looks around, and true to form, like all we've heard about King Ferdinand to date is like fat jokes, basically. Yeah. So
and he's kind of chubby, right?
He's kind of chubby. He's not skinny, but he's not like huge. I thought for as much as they made the fat jokes, I thought it would be like a bigger fat, but again, it was 1991, so that might have been pretty fat for 91. But
the king seems like a fun guy, seems friendly, and we learn some royal etiquette at Mypos. How to greet a king. What do you do? Balky,
after the knock knock.
After the knock knock, Balky immediately just collapses belly down, face down, like lies
arms
down,
to his side,
arms to his side, lies down almost, in front of him. As that's the greeting, and the king just goes, "You may speak," as Balky gets up to his knees with his hands in like a prayer position.
And he says, "Welcome to our humble home, your gratuitousness."
Okay, so now this episode has some hilarious, what do you call these? Royal, what is the term for the thing you call like your majesty? Titles?
No, it's a term of address.
It's the official term of address for royalty. And the first one we get is your gratuitousness.
Your gratuitous.
I think that's funny.
And these change throughout the episode, but it's
what
always...
What does gratuitous mean? Meaning unnecessary, right?
It's over the top, yeah.
Over the top. So that's okay. So just keep that in mind because they change.
Always
It's
mean
hilarious.
something else. It means not over the top. You're right. Unnecessary, without cause, something like that.
Unnecessary. So and they'll change based on who the king is.
Yeah.
It's a great detail. So he calls them your gratuitous in this. And then we see a second kingly routine.
So he slaps Balky across the face twice. Then Balky kisses his hand. Then he slaps him across the face twice, like with both hands, like a little ping pong back and forth. And then he kisses his foot, and then he slaps him 2 more times. Then he grabs his hand, and Balky, he holds him while Balky hops up from his knees
into a squat while he's holding.
Stands up, which is a hard thing to do. We used to do that in CrossFit, right?
And then they're both squatting like sumo,
but it's this
sumo
little
fighters at each
ritual
other. Yes.
Slapping of the face. Yeah.
Balky goes, the king goes, who. And then there's a beat, and then they break out into like a jazz swing.
Yeah, there's a bunch of recognizable songs in this little ritual. The Harry Belafonte song.
Yes, he quotes Deo. They got their
Chattanooga Choo Choo.
A little dance. There's a little move where he kisses the king's hand, and then it's foot sideways, back and forth. It's
and he
hilarious.
spins into his arms at one point. And then
there's more face slapping.
There's more face slapping. It's a nice little choreographed Meposian ritual dance. And then at the end, they together sort of like jump in the air and go, oh. And they really laugh, cute. And it's very happy. So this whole little physical comedy thing. It's fun. It's musical. And then they finish that, and the king looks at Larry and goes, you must be cousin Larry.
He goes, you must be cousin Larry.
And Larry's like, uh-oh, because now he's thinking, I have to go through this whole thing too. So he slowly gets down to the floor to do that planking prostrate position.
In front of him.
But he fixes his tie before
he puts his tie down.
Yeah.
And then lies down. And then the king is like, you may speak. And then Larry gets to his knees into the prayer position, and he goes, welcome to America. You're he looks over to Balky. Balky goes, your superfluousness.
Superfluousness.
Your superfluousness. Again, another term for something that's unnecessary, unneeded. So we have gratuitousness and superfluousness. Yeah. It's so funny. And then he braces to get slapped in the face, right?
Yeah.
Because he's expecting the same thing.
He's expecting the whole song and dance and the face slapping, but King Ferdinand just pats him on the shoulder and goes, thanks.
Thanks. He turns around and he slaps Balky on each side of the face and has Balky kiss his hand.
Yeah.
Instead.
Like by proxy or
There's
something.
A lot of face slapping in this episode. It's kind of hilarious.
And he tells Larry, you may rise, and Larry gets up. Balky asks King Ferdinand, where would you like to go first? And the king responds, to see a dentist. And Balky's like, what? And he goes, I have to get my crown replaced. And then there's like just a beat where Balky and Larry are looking at him confused, and he goes, it's a king joke. Which is so funny because when he walked in, I said to you, I was like, they should have had him wear a crown. Why isn't he wearing a crown?
He's the king. He should have a crown.
Because of this joke. He's like bald too. Yes. We forgot that.
And then this is funny. They both do the where do I come up with the move
slap
as
their
they
knees,
slap their knees.
The king and
put their
Balky
arms
together.
in the air.
And so Balky and the king throw their arms up in the air. Balky then puts his arms back down. The king sort of turns toward Larry
and collapses on him.
And as his arms come down, his whole body collapses onto Larry, and Larry's standing and catches him in his arms.
He's clearly limp.
Yeah.
And Balky looks and goes, oh, cousin Larry, I think he likes you. Scratch him behind the ears like he's like a dog or something. And Larry's like, Balky, I think something's wrong. Balky's just like, oh, it's probably just a serious case of jet lag. And he steps up and he scratches him behind the ear. He's like, isn't it? Isn't it?
And Larry's like, no, I don't think so. And he pulls back the king's head like by his hair to look at his face. And his eyes are just blank, staring straight ahead. And then he drops his head back onto his shoulder. And then he goes, he's dead. So Larry's standing there holding a dead man. And Balky's like, are you sure? And then Larry lifts up one of the king's arms and then just drops it, and it just falls.
Oh, my. He's holding a dead man now.
He's like, yup, positive.
And he's not freaking out like Larry normally do.
You'd think frantic Larry holding a dead man. A man just died in his arms.
But then here is the important shift of power. As Balky says, King Ferdinand is dead. All hail cousin Larry. the new king of Mypos, and he falls down to the ground face first and lies in front of Larry, in front of Prostate.
Larry's just holding
in front of the new king. Oh my God! And you would think this would be the end of Act 1.
Why is Larry the
but
new
it is
king?
not.
Yeah, it would have been a good end of Act 1. But no, we're still in Act 1, and we cut to a little bit later, and Balki and Larry now walk into their kitchen, and this is the first time we see their new kitchen, which is huge.
Yes,
the whole
it's the first other part of the house we've seen yet, and
it's a whole different set.
They have like a double oven and like multiple islands,
and they have like a lot of pantry items in the background.
If you look at the shelves, there's so much stuff.
Tons of cans and jars.
Somebody
of things
went to Sam's Club or something.
Those four eat a lot, I guess.
Jeez, it's a nice kitchen though. Yes. Balki's in shock because the king has just died.
And Larry asked him if he's okay. And he said, yeah, we all knew the king had a weak heart. Everybody always said, long live the king, but nobody really believed him. And Larry's like, okay, he's ready to we got to call someone to move him, whatever. And Balki's like, no, we can't do that. And he says, the kingly carcass must not be moved until the speaker of the hut arrives.
The speaker of the hut.
This is so cute. Actually, that's a really cute play on where Speaker of the House, and he says, the Speaker of the Hut of Representatives.
The Speaker of the Hut of Representatives. Great. It's so close to Speaker of the House.
Uh-huh.
House, hut, same thing. What does he do? Balki tells him the Speaker of the Hut is the guy who oversees the day-to-day governing of Mypos. And in his spare time, he says he manages a 4-day tire store. I don't understand this line or this joke.
I think the joke is just that all of the most important people in Mypos also are also some kind of laborers.
They have businesses.
Yeah.
Balki says he's a really nice guy.
4-day tire store.
4-day I don't know why 4-day. It's not open the other 3 days. I don't understand.
Was there something about tire stores in the 90s that we're missing?
Is it only open 4 days a year? I don't get it.
4-day tires.
But the Speaker of the Hut, according to Balki, he says is a very nice guy. He says it's too bad he wasn't here to catch the king. Everybody's always saying he'd make a great king. And he goes to Larry. He goes, anyway, you'll like him, your diminutiveness.
Larry is the king now.
The title has changed.
Your diminutiveness.
Which means
Larry just
small.
says, don't call me your diminutiveness. And Balki says, as you wish. And again,
he lies down on the ground in front of Larry.
At Larry's
So I love that the title now has changed to reflect the new king, who is tiny. You'll see there's more jokes about Larry, your diminutiveness. And Larry's super embarrassed. He's like, no, get up. Balki's not moving. And then he stops and goes, you may rise.
He realizes how to get him to get, you may rise.
And Balki does kneel, and Larry has to slap him on both cheeks and have him kiss his hand and then help him up.
And then he jumps up again, pulls him up again. And he says, don't call me, again, he says, don't call me your diminutiveness. And Balki says, as you wish, your compactness.
Your compactness is great.
It was another short little person joke. And he does another sort of respectful genuflection kind of thing. Larry's not having any of this. He says, just because the king died in my arms doesn't mean that I'm the king of Mypos. And this is how we learn that that's what the tradition, at least for this episode, is for succession. Balki explains to him again, whoever is the first person to touch the king after he dies becomes the new king. That's the tradition.
That's a weird tradition, but okay. That could lead to a lot of problems, as we see.
And so Larry says, well, if he had fallen into someone else's arms, what would happen? And Balki says, then somebody else would be the king, the new king. And Larry's like, really? And you can see the wheels turning in his head.
He needs a plan.
He needs a plan. Really? And he says, yes, really. And then he excuses himself to go and call Mypos to tell the authorities that he's going to be the new king. That Larry's going to be the new king. And Larry's like, oh, wait, no, because he's still hatching a plan to get out of this kingness. And he says, hold off on that call. And Balki's like, no, I can't. I need to give them time to put your face on the money.
This is great. And Larry continues and kind of hearing it, but not hearing it. He goes, no, Balki, we have got to. And then he just stops and thinks. He goes, they're going to put my face on the money.
Now he's interested.
Now he's thinking about it. Balki's like, well, just the digdas. The 5 digda note and the pingies.
What are pingies? Coins, I guess?
Probably the coins.
Yeah.
And then Larry just goes, they're going to put my face on the money. That's all you can think about. And then he's like,
almost gives in, but then he's like, no.
Okay, Mike snaps out of it. It's so funny though.
He says, this is crazy. Just don't make that call. And then he realizes that Balki's like, he needs a way to make Balki listen to him. And he remembers that he's the king. So he's like, if I'm going to be the king, I need to immerse myself in the food of the people. Now he's trying to buy time.
He needs to buy some time
to hatch his plan or to develop his plan.
And he's starting to act like a king for this.
And he says, I need to immerse myself in the food of my people. Okay, wait, has he not been eating Miposian food for like 6 years now?
But does he eat it when Balki makes it occasionally? Or does he just make something else?
And then Balki goes, oh, good. I just happen to have a vat of yak fat.
Vat of yak fat.
And Balki's like, no, you know what? Larry says, I'm not in a yak fat mood. And he sends Balki on an errand, presumably so he has time to work on his plan. He says, go out and get me some chocolate-covered goat parts.
And Balki goes, which parts would you like?
And without skipping a beat, he goes, get me the sampler.
Get me the sampler is so funny.
Get me the sampler.
A little bit. And he's like, go now. And Balki goes, as you wish, your petiteness, and does the little curtsy with the hand on his cheek. So there's a third. We've got diminutiveness, compactness, petiteness, all great, short, small jokes. But Larry has sent Balki away, and we transition to some time later as Balki comes back into the living room. And
with
Larry,
like a paper bag.
He's got a paper bag, and Larry, we see, is sitting there with the king sitting to his right there on the sofa. It's kind of weird.
How did he pick him up? That's a big dude.
What is happening?
Balki runs in with his paper bag. He says he couldn't find any chocolate-covered goat parts. Your liplessness.
Your liplessness is great. I love the lip jokes.
He's like, so I'm going to heat up some chocolate and dip them myself. And he runs into the kitchen to go get started. And Balki's like, thank you. And then he turns to the king and talks to him as if they're in mid-conversation. He says, you know, your majesty, you couldn't ask for a more loyal subject than Balki Bartakamus. And Balki sees this and comes back in from the kitchen. He's like, what is happening? And he's staring at the king sitting next to Larry, just like he's looking at a ghost or something. And Larry goes, hi, Balki. And he lifts his hands to wave. And at the same time, synchronously, the king's hand also comes up for a wave. And Balki's like, he's alive. He's alive. All hail King Ferdinand of Mipos. And he drops down to prostrate in front of King Mipos. And the scene cuts to black. And that is the end of Act 1.
Okay.
What is happening? The king is alive.
The king is not alive. We all know what's coming.
It's Weekend at
Weekend at Bernie's. Before we get there, though, listener, join this conversation. Join our fun Facebook group where I post a thread on every episode we review and recap before we record. So you can watch it, leave your comments, observations, questions, and we'll throw them into the show. It's a lot of fun. You get to hear your comment read at the end and meet other people who enjoy Perfect Strangers and listen to this podcast. Lots of fun over there.
Yep.
Link in the episode description. Okay, so what kind of shenanigans has Larry been up to in this when he sent Balki out?
Some rigging of dead bodies. So we get into Act 2, and we're right where we left off with Balki lying on the floor in front of the king, and he has just said, King Ferdinand's alive, all hail. Yeah. And Larry's like, calm down. The king is still dead. And Balki's confused now. And he goes, but cousin, he waved at me. And he gets up from the floor. And Larry then explains, I made him wave. And he pulls on he's got like a fishing line, like a
fishing
clear
line tied to his wrist, going around his neck,
shoulder. Yeah.
To the other hand. And he's like, I made a wave. He's like, fishing line. See, pretty good. And now Larry has a plan. And he tells Balki, this is what we're going to do. We will just keep King Ferdinand alive for just a few more hours, then dump him into the arms of the Speaker of the Hut when he arrives at the reception. The Speaker will be king and everybody will be happy. And right away, that's a great plan.
Yeah. But Balki right away is not one to shun Miposian tradition, right? So yes. He's not having it. And he says, your obsessiveness.
Your obsessiveness, he calls him now. Your obsessiveness.
You caught the king, so you are the king. And he goes, I rest my face.
I rest my face. As he backs out of the room backwards into the kitchen, and Larry follows him backwards. Balky's walking backwards. They head there in the middle of the kitchen as Larry's trying to catch him. Go, Balky. He reminds Balky that he said the Speaker of the Hut would make a terrific king for Meepos. And Balky goes, well, he's been trying to catch a dead king for years.
And then to further his argument, he says, and I would make a lousy king. You know me. I'm selfish, pushy, greedy, and Balky goes shallow, hypocritical, and a bald-faced liar.
Just jumps right in.
Bald-faced? Bold-faced.
Bold-faced, bald-faced. Yeah, they both work.
But this is my favorite line. So he goes, Larry says selfish, pushy, greedy. Balky adds shallow, hypocritical, bald-faced liar. And then Balky goes, but that won't impair your ability to lead a country. Zing. A zing for the ages. It's still just as true today as it was in 91.
That line will always work.
Won't impair your ability to lead a country.
You can be all those things and still be the leader. And Balky goes, face it, you're the king. Gets back down on the floor. This time, Larry's like, okay, all right. I'll be the king. He goes, you may rise. And Balky gets to his knees again. They do the slap, kiss the hand again. And he pulls him up. And now Larry starts his play. He goes, Balky, you know.
Oh, yeah. Manipulation happening here.
So now what's going to happen? He's got to try to make Balky think this is his idea, right? So he just goes, Balky, you know, the first thing I'm going to do as King of Meepos.
Balky goes, put a booster chair on the throne.
There's
so many short jokes.
And Larry says, no. But it would have been funny if Larry goes, yes, but after that. But he goes,
second thing I'm going to do.
The second thing I'm going to do. No, he says, no. He says, I'm going to turn the island of Meepos into a radioactive, toxic waste dump. What do you think about that? Oh, what?
Okay. And Balky says, what? Balky's shocked. He says, I don't think you should do that. And Larry says, oh, you don't think I should do that? In this like real condescending way. And he's like, no, I don't. And he goes, but I am the king.
I am the king. I would know best for what's best for the island.
And he says, and nobody, not you, not the Speaker of the Hut, can stop me. And he goes, he points at the floor. He goes, get down there. Get down there. Now he's playing with it.
Because Balky falls to the ground face first, and now Larry puts his leg on his back.
Yeah, like he's just climbed a mountain, that kind of leg.
Yes, oh my God, he's really getting into it.
And he's like, yes, a radioactive toxic waste dump it will be. And Balky's like, he's on the floor under Larry's foot.
Larry goes, you may rise.
No. And he gets up, and Larry slaps his face, and Balky kisses his hand, and he pulls him up to his feet. And Larry continues. He goes, of course, all the Meepiots will glow in the dark, but think of all the money we'll save on fluorescent vests for the road crews.
Balky's had it up. He has to speak up, and finally he says, try me for treason and call me Eggs Benedict, but I don't think you should be the king. And he covers his mouth. He's shocked that he said it. So I like the Eggs Benedict. Benedict Arnold.
Benedict Arnold. Love it. Try me for treason and call me Eggs Benedict.
He says, I don't think you should be the king. And I love Larry's delivery here. Mark Baker goes, oh, you don't think I should be the king? No. And then Balky goes, no, I don't think you should be the king.
He's
and Larry
crying.
Goes, oh, you don't think I should be the king? Oh, but I am the king. I am the king. Get down there.
Get down there.
And Balky drops again.
And then again, Larry puts his foot on his back on the ground, and he's like, I am the king.
And Balky's crying on the floor.
I don't think you should be the king. And this goes on for a while. He's like, you don't think I should be the king?
He puts his foot on him again, and then he crouches down. And at this point, like, he sounded like Donald Trump to me. Mm-hmm. He was like, I am the king. But I am the king. Oh, you don't think you should be the king? I am the king.
It's too late now.
It's too late. I am the king. And Balky again sobs. It's too late now.
And then here comes phase 2 of Larry's plan. He goes, unless, but Balky doesn't pick it up right away. And he still keeps saying, it's too late now.
Because he's repeating everything, but he hasn't caught up.
Again, he says, unless. And then Balky's like, unless what?
Well, this time Larry grabs the back of Balky's head and goes, unless. And then he goes, unless what?
And then Larry says, like, unless
Like,
oh, no, it would never work. It's too perfect.
And he drops his head and walks away.
This is a great line. Balky stands up and he goes, cousin, we may have to settle for perfect. We're desperate. The way he said it's too perfect, like it was something bad. So we have to settle for perfect. I'm going to use that line again. We just have to settle for perfect because we're desperate. And so Larry tells him this. He's like, well, you know what I was thinking? If we pretend King Ferdinand is alive and then drop him into the arms of someone who would make a terrific king, someone who would know how to run the country, someone who has been waiting to catch a king for years, but no one comes to mind.
And Balky, of course, is like, wait a minute, I know someone. Of course, the Speaker of the Hut. He just told us. And Larry goes, Balky, you're a genius, making him think it's his idea. And Balky's like, well,
we'll just drop the king into the arms of the Speaker of the Hut and we'll save Mypos from Larry.
Yes, from the toxic waste stuff.
And then Balky's suddenly on board, even though like a minute ago, the very same plan he was not having. Anyway, Balky's like, cousin, we have to go make King Ferdinand ready for the party. And they leave the kitchen. But let's pause here for a second.
We have to mention the best part of this episode. We just passed it. We glossed over it. Before they get into the kitchen, when Larry is explaining the plan to Balky the first time, if you look, he's in the background.
In the background,
just
sitting
look
on
at
the couch.
Lower left corner of the frame. You see the king who's playing dead, except I believe the actor didn't know he was still on camera because you see him like adjust his mouth. And then he closes his eyes, opens and closes them, and opens them, and try to he resets because he's been sitting there still.
Because it must be hard to not blink.
And I was like, oh my God, look, he's moving his face. Like he did not know he was on camera, and they didn't bother. I don't know if they didn't catch it.
That's why they had
bother
dark
to
glasses on him
later.
Oh, no. Whoops. Sorry.
Yeah, later he's wearing shades, but he's not in this.
Must have been hard to keep your eyes open.
Yeah, that's why you put the shades on when you do this kind of role. It makes it easier.
Yeah.
But totally, that's the best part is you see the guy blink his eyes and twitch his mouth. I'm like,
so funny,
he doesn't know.
That's the best part of this episode. But let's pause there. Anyway, I have a few thoughts here. To me, this whole manipulation of Balky and Balky's falling for it's too fast from when Larry simply presented the idea and Balky was like, no, you're the king. And it's not believable. Even for Balky, it's not believable. Balky and Larry, it's not believable because it's just back to back. They just talked about
the same
exact plan. Yeah. And then then he manipulates him. Now, if he hadn't done that first part and then manipulated him, then that would make more sense for their characters. But this was so weird to me to watch, and
it's a little forced and it's
I
a
don't
stretch.
get it. Unless there was something in between that they cut out or something, but it's
he goes,
literally
here's
back
my
to
plan.
back.
And Balky's like, no, cousin, we can't do your plan, even though he's been dying to catch a king for years. And then
he's like, all right, I'm going to turn it into a toxic waste dump.
And Balky's like, no. And at that point, he forgets everything they just talked about.
Everything. And the second thing is, the toxic waste dump idea was already done in the selling of Mypos episode.
That's why that company wanted to buy Mypos to put a toxic waste.
Yeah, which would explain why Balky's so against it. But come on, writers, you couldn't have come up with a different idea.
That's 2 times they have saved Mypos from becoming a toxic waste dump. Even though the second time it was never going to happen.
Right. And there's no mention of that. Neither of them remember that whole thing from before.
No, the short attention span. You think we have it now with the internet and stuff. Oh, they had it bad back then. They couldn't remember things 1 second to the next.
They couldn't look it up.
In sitcom universe.
So anyway, I found that, I get what they're doing with the story, but even for their characters in this show, I found that hard to believe that he would manipulate him so quickly. It's literally back to back, the same idea presented in different ways. All right.
Listen, since we made fun of the king not knowing he's on camera, we should tell people who plays the king. Let's get that out of the way.
Yes.
I feel bad because it's not his fault that they didn't redo it. Yeah. He does a great job, except for that one part where nobody told him.
He was meant to be off camera and it was just a goof in the filming. So the guy who plays King Ferdinand is called Don Amendolia.
Don Amendolia, I love you, buddy. You did great, except for when you moved your mouth.
And it's actually like, I was thinking how hard it is to play, how hard it would be. Like, he just sat
it's
there
hard,
without
but it's also
any
easy. You
expression.
don't have to do anything. You just let people pose you.
Yeah. So Don Amendolia was, like a lot of our guest stars on the show, on a lot of TV back in the 80s and 90s.
He looks familiar.
Soap
he looks
operas,
super familiar.
Gary Shandling's show, Twin Peaks, Cheers, Family Ties, Newhart, Cop Rock.
Cop Rock. Oh my God.
Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Life Goes On. Oh, Obladi Oblada. Night Court, LA Law, Frasier, Seinfeld, Ellen, and Law and Order, and lots of films and theater.
I knew I recognized him. I've probably seen him in a bunch of things.
Yeah,
he seemed very, very familiar. Yeah. All right. Anyway, so now it's time for the party. It's time for the reception for the King of Me Post. We transition. It's nighttime. We cut back to inside the house. And there's a party going on. There's a whole bunch of people all dressed up. Who are any of these people? I don't know. But notably,
one black man and one Asian man.
I think it's the same dudes that were at his bachelor party.
Not bad for 1991.
Yeah, yeah. It's pretty diverse. But like, who are these people? Where do they come from? Larry is sitting on the sofa with King Ferdinand still, but this time, like we were talking about, he's got shades on, which hides the fact that he's not blinking.
Yeah.
And Larry's sitting there. He turns King Ferdinand's head. And he waves to someone, and he raises his hand, and the wire waves King Ferdinand's hand. He's trying to pretend King Ferdinand is alive and talking to people, and he tugs that up and moves his head. Meanwhile, Balki comes down, comes over and sits next to the king, and he's got two drinks. Everybody in this party is drinking like windshield wiper fluid. They all have these little plastic cups with a blue drink in it. This has to be some kind of Maposian beverage.
In fact, I think it is some kind of, it looks like mouthwash.
It does look like they're drinking mouthwash.
Or like cleaning fluid.
Or like Windex. Are they drinking Windex?
So this is a bit of a spoiler, but a few episodes down the line from us now, we have another, I won't say what it is, but another Meposian sort of event. And this blue drink makes an appearance.
Do they explain what it is?
No.
Okay.
But
it's a Meposian drink and it's blue. So Balki tries to also act like King Ferdinand is alive, and he turns his head and he puts his arm around him and then crosses his legs and pretends to talk to him. It's kind of funny. Yeah,
they're just like doing their best to try to make this king look alive. And they're sitting on either side of him on the couch trying to like be in conversation and with him. And then the front door opens off to our left, and this man and woman enter, and they're again dressed in what we are to believe is Meposian attire, but again, it looks like the wardrobe people just like found anything, any kind of ethnic, and
there's all sorts of hats and sashes and tassels and scarves and belts,
just elaborate, gaudy, like
embroidered skirts. Stuff. Yeah, looking from all over. It's
so
great.
It's a man and a woman, and then we go back to the couch, and Larry's like, "Okay, they're here." And Balki looks over, still seated with the king, like the king's arm is around Balki. Yeah. And he goes, "That's our speaker, all right. Old walkie-talkie."
Walkie-talkie is his name.
Get it? Speaker, walkie-talkie.
Speaker, walkie-talkie.
And his lovely wife, Chatty Cathy.
Chatty Cathy is his wife.
Although she prefers to be called Cookie.
I don't understand why that has to do with it. I don't know what
Cookie is, but...
anyways, Larry's like, go get him because they need to get this whole plan over with. So Balki gets up to leave and he stops. He turns back. He's like, what do I do with my drink? He puts the drink in King Ferdinand's right hand.
Left hand.
Left hand.
The hand closer to
the
Larry.
hand that's tied to the fishing line. Larry does not see any of this. He's looking off to the other side as Balki puts this blue drink in King Ferdinand's hand. Okay. And then he goes over to the speaker of the hut, and there's some fun interaction here. Oh, and then he walks away, and then this lady walks by, and Larry sees her, and he's like, "Oh, hello!" And he waves King Ferdinand. He pulls the string to wave King Ferdinand's hand, which promptly splashes him in the face with the blue liquid.
Goes straight into Larry's face, and Larry tries to play it off, so he starts dabbing it. He's like dripping in this. He starts dabbing it all over his face, and he goes, "Oh, you're absolutely right, Your Majesty. It makes a marvelous aftershave."
He's trying to play it off like he said it was aftershave.
Then we go over to where Balki is going to welcome the speaker and the woman, and he goes, "Okie," and he goes, he goes to the speaker, goes, "Okie dokie, how's it hangy?"
Speaker's like, "Okie dokie, Balky," and then he turns to his wife. He goes, "Reminisky cookie."
Wait, how did Meposian suddenly become like a pig Latin
Or
language?
like a pole. Yes, it's just making up words.
And Becky goes, "You bet your bibi babka." And he goes to the woman, he goes, "How's it hangy, cookie?" And the woman, like no accent or anything, just goes, "Super."
She gives him a thumbs up and goes, super. Like she's
sounding
from California or
LA,
something.
yeah. And then what happens?
And then the three of them get into like a quick huddle. And
their
they go,
heads, and they bend forward, so their heads are in the middle of the huddle.
Ingy, wingy, wingy. And they step back and they point at each other and they all go, wow. It's so funny
ridiculous.
and random and ridiculous. But I love that. Okie dokie, how's it hangy? Yeah. Reminisky cookie. Like, remember cookie? Yeah. Reminisky cookie.
Okay, so the man who plays the Speaker of the Hut is a guy called Paul Eiding.
Okay.
Again, like we say with everyone else, a ton of TV credits from that time. For example, Hill Street Blues, Fame, Cheers, Who's the Boss, 30-something, Dallas, The Golden Girls, Doogie Howser, MD, Star Trek, Next Generation, ER, The Practice, The Drew Carey Show, and the list goes on and on. He's also done voice acting and cartoon voices and stuff like that. So a lot of credits to this guy's name.
He's speaking of like Fiddler on the Roof. This guy's got a full beard.
Does look
he looks like he just stepped off a production of Fiddler on the Roof.
From Anatevka.
Yes, like he just finished the stage play and he had to show up on this set.
Yeah. Actually, he did look very. And they're kind of dressed like they belong in Anatevka.
Yeah, right.
Like Cookie has like a kerchief over her hair.
Like they just sang tradition or to life.
L'chaim.
Anyways, now we get a little bit with Lydia and Gorpley.
Lydia and Gorpley are
at the party amongst all these other strangers. I don't know who any of these people are.
Who are all these friends?
So, Sam Gorpley does not have any lines. He's just standing, apparently talking to Lydia, who they're behind the couch.
Which is funny, because usually when they have them together, they work in some like interaction between them where he can make a dig at her.
No, this is this is just a Lydia bit. So the king, somebody's put his arm along the back of the sofa, right? And Lydia's behind the sofa and she leans into his hand and she goes, "Oh, King Ferdinand, you little skip." She thinks he just grabbed her bottom there. She knocks his hand down. So it's sitting on the sofa cushion now. And she goes over and sits down and sits on his hand. And again, she's like, "Oh, you little devil."
Yeah. And then so she
picks up the hand and moves it. And sits down next to him, and all this is completely normal to her.
And when she sits next to him, his body kind of slumps toward her.
Yeah.
And she's like, "Ooh." And she takes his hand, and she goes, "Oh, cold hands, warm heart."
Yeah, she has no idea that this unresponsive person is not alive. Just with his head to the side.
This actually reminds me of the comedy special we were watching the other day, Dusty Slay. Like, how long does it take for a dead body to go cold? But apparently the king's body is cold already.
Oh, his hand's getting cold. Yeah. Cold hands, warm heart. And then we cut back to Balky as he's trying to talk to the speaker, right? He needs him to get over. You just hear Balky go, "Slooply taki walkie talkie." And the speaker just goes, "Balky, no can do." And walks away. And Balky goes over to Larry. They have an issue.
Yeah,
he tells
they
him,
had some argument.
Yes, he says the speaker and King Ferdinand are not speaking to each other. He says they had a big fight before they left Meat Post. Something about whether certs is really two mints in one. Okay. We gotta explain.
We have
to
explain because you don't really see certs anymore. Certs was a breath mint.
Yeah, it came in a little roll,
like candy aisle. Yeah, it was very popular back then.
Do they still make certs?
It was the one that was like white with little green specks in it.
That's right. That's right. So it's like wintergreen or peppermint.
and it had little.
It was the breath freshener,
little sparkly green specks or blue specks in it, and there was an ad campaign back then that touted this mint as two things, as both candy and a breath mint or something.
Yes, two, and that
it was the slogan was two mints in one. And
the
there was probably a
slogan
song
goes back to like the 60s, so it was throughout the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Okay.
It's one of those old, but it's not really around anymore.
Well, we don't see certs, but I remember it was the one. Are you looking at it?
Yeah,
it was the one with little specks in it, right?
Yeah,
like little round.
Yeah, it's got
white
a hole.
Circles with.
It's got a hole in the middle,
with a hole. Oh, with the hole. Not a hole.
There's no hole.
It's like a dip.
It's a little indentation. The Lifesavers had a hole.
Yeah.
But I mean, this would be in the candy store next to like everything.
Yeah.
Now it's like the little what are those mints?
Still make certs?
No, what's the mint in the plastic box?
Altoids?
No, the other one, the see-through plastic box with the little white top.
Tic Tac?
Tic Tac. See, I can't remember because stupid Tic Tacs. Tic Tacs are still around.
Like candy. But
Altoids
certs,
is the new.
I remember certs.
I remember
they're
certs.
I don't really see them anymore. Anyway, that was a.
Oh, certs was discontinued in 2018.
There you go. Okay.
So yes.
Why? I wonder why.
I don't know. They couldn't hack it in the.
Altoids came around.
Altoids kicked certs' butt, knocked them out.
Curiously strong. Okay.
So they had a fight about this commercial, basically, and they're not talking.
If they, we'll talk about this later, but let's just note it now in case we forget. If they redid this episode, it would be. Something about Altoids being curiously strong.
Oh, yes. Whether Altoids are curiously strong or not. Or just mildly strong.
Yeah. Okay, and I have another question.
Okay.
If the speaker and King Ferdinand were in a fight and weren't talking to each other, why did the speaker show up to this reception? Maybe because he had to. It was protocol.
Unclear.
Or
well, yeah, it's he's got to show up to support the king.
What did they fight about? We never know.
One of them thinks it's only one mint. The other one thinks it's two mints in one.
Right.
And the king thinks, no, it's just one thing. It's three things in it. No, he showed up out of respect, but he's probably like, I'll show up, but I don't have to talk to him.
Right. Okay. So Balky's like, there's a problem. How are we going to get the speaker to catch him if he's not talking to him, whatever. And Larry's like, okay, new plan. If the speaker won't come to the king will have to go to the speaker. What? How are they going to make the king move?
Well, Lydia is still sitting there flirting with the king, who is not flirting back, but she thinks he is, I guess.
And so Larry gives Balky the end of the fishing line, and then he's trying to get Lydia to leave. So he says it's time for him to mingle with the other guests. Lydia's like at this point like caressing his face and stuff, and Larry like pulls the king away from her. Lydia's like, okay, fine, and then she holds his face by the chin, turns his face toward her.
Yeah.
Okay. And she goes, as long as you promise to save me a dance later tonight, do you promise? And Larry's like, I don't think I'll have time for that. But like, that's so weird. Would you do that to even an alive person at a party? Would you like take their face and move their head?
Someone who's like a king and royalty?
Yeah, it's weird.
She's aggressive though. We know she's aggressive. Maybe. She's grabbing the mailman and everything.
And at this point, Balky's holding that fishing line, right? So, and Larry's like, got his face near the king trying to get him away from Lydia, and Balky pulls the string and makes King Ferdinand's hand slap Larry in the face, which is very funny.
Lydia leaves, and then Larry turns to Balky, hits him in the knee. Balky pulls the string again, and Larry gets smacked in the face of King Ferdinand. This time, Larry turns to the king and smacks him in the face, and then Balky smacks him in the face and then Larry's like, Balky,
stop it.
Will you give me a hand? And Balky pulls the thing again, smacks him in the face again. The funniest part is that he turned and he smacked the king. He thought the king was smacking him as Balky was smacking him. And then he's like, stop it. He pulls the fishing line from Balky. He goes, a dead man is not a toy.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, we missed this other line I liked before when he explains about when he puts the fishing line on him. Balky goes, you're playing puppet with a monarch or something. That was
playing puppets with a monarch. Yeah.
This whole thing is like so dark, right?
It's so dark.
Literally,
there's
like
a dead man.
You're following a dead body, but I guess after.
Also, was this okay for TGIF?
No, this is the thing is after Weekend at Bernie's was such a huge hit, it was like accepted that like you can have fun with the dead body.
Joke. Yeah.
You can just have fun schlepping a dead body around. In the 80s, nobody cared.
Totally. If Weekend at Bernie's wasn't a thing, this whole episode.
No, it would be weird. You'd be like, this is strangely dark.
Like literally before Weekend at Bernie's, no one ever thought to like play with a dead body. And
see, we don't get comedies like that anymore. It's so safe now. We need more of these things.
All right, so they're slapping each other, and Larry's like, "Stop it!" and he takes the fishing line back from him, and then they have to do their plan. They have to get the king to the speaker, but the speaker's not coming near him because they're not talking because they had a fight. And they can't just drag him around the room because there's a room full of people at this reception. Everyone will realize he's dead. They have to make him look alive. And Balki's like, okay, no problem. And so they each take a seat on either side of the king on the couch, and then they both stand up.
They each grab his hand.
They grab his hand, and they stand up and sort of like
they lean forward like Michael Jackson from the Smooth Criminal video,
trying to pull him up, but he's a big guy, right?
Gets up, yes.
So it's kind of cumbersome, but they do get him up, and then they put his arms around their shoulders.
Yes. This is the Weird Weekend at Bernie's part.
And this is so ridiculous because nobody would believe that this man is alive at this point. They're on either side of him. They've got his arms around their shoulders, and then they each take one of the king's pant legs and like walk with him and lift up his legs as they walk, as if he's walking with them. But it's so obvious.
It's so funny. Like nobody notices that they're lifting his legs. So they walk over to the Speaker of the Hut and Cookie as those two start to walk away from them behind the sofa.
And they start walking
They circle around the sofa and they're walking faster and faster.
And Balki and Larry are moving their legs fast.
He looks like a little puppet that they're holding up and they're moving his legs faster and faster.
And they end up behind the couch.
Pretty ridiculous
finally.
And hilarious. Yeah.
They end up behind the couch, and Larry says to Balki, just get the Speaker of the Hut to turn around to face the king, and then I'll just drop the King Ferdinand into his arms. And Balki's like, got it. But the speaker is turned away talking to Cookie on the other side.
Yes.
So Balki goes around in front of Cookie, and he goes,
he distracts her with sheep dip. He's like, "Go, there's sheep dip."
You see over there, we have chips and sheep dip. And she's like, "Oh,"
Super.
And then she leaves to go to the snacks toward the kitchen. And then Balki goes to the speaker. Your speakership. That one's just
your speakership.
There's something I've never told you. The night that you and Cookie did the Captain and Tennille medley, I was really moved.
He's trying to distract him. Oh, I guess they do Captain and Tennille songs.
And he goes, I finally understood the meaning of muskrat love.
That's one of their songs, right? I think that was one of their biggest songs, Captain and Tennille.
Yeah. Captain and Tennille was a popular singing duo in the 70s, and Muskrat Love was apparently one of their biggest hits. I can't think of this song right now, but
no, they were also the butt of many jokes, Captain and Tennille. I know that I don't know their music that well, but I know
their famous
name,
song was Love Will Keep Us Together.
Oh,
you might remember that one. Yeah,
exactly.
But I don't know Muskrat Love. But anyway, so they threw in a Captain and Tennille joke for nothing.
As he's doing this, he's pushing the speaker backwards towards the king. And Larry's behind the king, getting ready to shove him. And Balki goes, oh, look, the king. And he spins the speaker around. And all Larry's got to do is push him and drop him into his arms. But what happens?
The speaker turns around, faces the king. As soon as he sees the king, he goes, I've got nothing to say to you, and walks away. And just as he walks away, Larry does his part of the plan, pushes the king forward, but the speaker walks away so he doesn't catch him, and the king just falls face plants
behind
into the
sofa.
floor.
Everybody has noticed. They're like, there's a man on the ground.
Yeah, everybody turns and looks now, and Larry's like, oh, sorry about that loose floorboard, Your Majesty. We'll just get that fixed. And so they pull him back up. Balki and Larry pull him back up. And Balki fixes his sunglasses on his face, all this stuff.
Balki polishes his head with a rag. It's kind of funny.
And he dabs at the corner of the king's mouth. And then he, with his hands, pushes the corners of the mouth
into a smile.
Into a smile. Can you do that with a dead person? I don't know.
Well, that would also mean rigor mortis is setting in. And it's just.
So he's cold.
But
and
the rest of him should be stiff too, which he's not. You can't do that with a dead man. This is Don Amendola doing a great job acting.
Yes. Oh yeah, he just holds that smile.
Yeah.
And then they get him up, and Balki is Larry's like, we gotta still go take him to the speaker. And so Balki's preparing to do the leg thing with the walk again, and Larry's like, well, we don't have time for that. So then they just drag
this guy around.
They just drag him his arms around their shoulders, but not doing the foot thing. They just drag him And they don't even care to make him look alive anymore. And the speaker sees them coming.
Well, they play it off, and Larry goes, "No more punch for you, big guy." So
yeah, like as if he's drunk. Yeah.
So now the speaker and Cookie have walked over in front of the couch to the left. And then Larry and Balky have dragged the speaker right behind.
Now they're in front of the couch.
Dragged the king behind the speaker in front of the couch.
And then Cookie's back too. Larry says to the speaker, "The king wants to apologize to you for your argument."
Well, no. First he goes to Balky. He goes, "Hold him." So Balky holds the king as Larry crosses past them.
Yeah.
Goes to the speaker, walks him back around to the other side, right?
Yeah.
Because he tells him the king wants to apologize to you.
And the speaker's like, "Oh, is that so? Well, this," and he's like, "All sorry." He's like, "This I would love to hear."
Okay, so currently the way everyone is oriented from left to right is Cookie, then Balky, who's holding up the king, and then you have the Speaker of the Hut and Larry on all the way on the right. This is important because the speaker turns around to hear the apology, and then Balky tips the king forward.
And then he
runs across them and goes behind.
To go stand by Larry.
Behind Larry all the way on the right. So the king is supposed to fall into the Speaker of the Hut, but they're just bowing to each other.
Yeah, and the king just like, Balky had tipped him forward a little bit, and so he tips forward a little, but then just like lingers. And then he falls backward and lands on top of Cookie.
They both collapse onto the sofa. This is not what the plan was. Oh, no.
No, but Balky and Larry are immediately prepared to roll with what happened.
Yes, they're improv.
And they both say together, the king is dead. Long live Queen Cookie.
And they run around and they lie down in front of Queen Cookie.
And so does the speaker.
And Walkie-Talkie also is like, this is the new king. And he lies down in front of his wife, again, or his girlfriend, his wife, who's the Queen Cookie.
Which wouldn't that make him the king if he's married to the queen?
Yeah, but she's the leader.
Yeah, I know.
No, he's the queen's husband at this point.
Okay.
And Cookie is shocked, and so are the rest of the people at this party who, boy, they're going to have a story to tell on Monday. They're like, you'll never guess what happened at this ceremony I went to. Oh, my God. This dude died. There was a new queen.
So it's Queen Cookie. And then what happens after that? We never find out really all the specifics.
Do you think eventually when Jennifer comes back, Larry was like, by the way, honey, there was a dead man on our sofa.
Yeah,
I don't know if we should wash these cushions.
Happy about
you want to keep
dying
the sofa
in their house.
I bet he doesn't.
Kind of uptight.
He's not even going to tell her he had this whole ceremony.
Where is Jennifer?
They're upstairs this whole time washing their hair.
Or they're on a flight somewhere along.
They had a whole party. Did they know they were having a party? All these strangers were going to be in their house.
Balky and Larry also did a whole side hustle last week, and the girls didn't know about that.
Is he going to tell them about that? Probably not. Did they know any of this happened? Unclear. Anyways, we transitioned to exterior shot and a caption.
2 weeks
later. So 2 weeks have passed after this whole debacle, and the girls are still not around. Where are they?
Yeah, 2 weeks later, they're still. Maybe they're just lots of flight. It's busy flying.
Larry is sitting on the sofa.
Maybe they're at a training for like 2 months or something.
They're out of town. Larry's sitting on the sofa. Balky runs in with
mail.
Mail full of
and Larry's like, anything for me.
He joins him on the couch.
One more last dig at Larry's height. He goes, all you have is this winter catalog from Digby's Fine Apparel. Clothing the little man since 1954. He reads it off the cover of the catalog.
He's like, give it.
And Balky's like, I think you'd look adorable in that little sailor suit on the cover.
What is this company he buys from?
One last note about his dig on his height. And then he goes, I got a letter from Mama. And he holds up this envelope. And this is so silly. The envelope has tassels on it.
Everything from Meatballs has tassels on it. Yes.
And he opens it up and he looks at the letter and he says, she says that ever since Queen Cookie has been ruling Meepos, it's nothing but party, party, party.
Oh, how is Queen Meepos' rule going? This is very interesting.
He says, he continues to read the letter. He says, and the fun began with the Queen's coronation, tractor pull, and demolition derby. That sounds fun, actually.
That does sound fun. Larry's like, that sounds very entertaining. It does. What a great day.
And The mama has also sent photographs of King Ferdinand's send-off.
Send-off. Larry's like, what? You mean his funeral?
And Belly says, no, I mean his send-off. And he holds up one picture. He says, see, there's a picture of them strapping him to the catapult.
Oh, my God. These are photos of them strapping King Ferdinand to a catapult.
And Larry's like, what? Don't they bury him in the ground or at sea? And this is brilliant. Belly says, well, that all depends on where he lands.
And then he flips the picture. And Balky's like, oh, see, there's a picture of the launch.
Excellent hang time.
He's like, excellent hang time.
And Larry just goes, he looks at the picture. He says, he had really quite good form for a dead man. And then Balky just nods, and then the episode ends. Like, that's it.
Roll
credits.
Listener, before we get into our thoughts, check out our merch at our shop online, danceofjoypod.com/shop will get you there. And there's a link in the description. You can buy t-shirts and coffee mugs and tote bags with the podcast logo on it. Lots of fun stuff there. Get some merch.
Merch is awesome, people, and it's very unique merch. You're not going to see this. It'll be a conversation piece.
You
people will ask
get it
you.
At danceofjoypod.com.
It's got our Dance of Joy Pod logo, which is, of course, Balky and Larry in silhouette doing the Dance of Joy. Brilliant logo designed by our very own Imran. And so
that way you'll help us promote and advertise, and you'll always have a memoriam of
get them now while you
this
can.
podcast.
It's going to be a collector's item soon.
Oh my God, 100 years from now, the scientists are going to study.
Going in our time capsule that we're going to bury
these items. Yes,
in your backyard. Yes, when we get famous for our brother sister 2-person Jesus Christ Superstar performance.
Yes, we're doing a 2-man show.
You're going to want this musical. Dance of Joy Pod merch. We'll find a way to connect it somehow.
Any notable things aside from
a few notable things.
Great performance from Don Amendolia.
What did you notice in hanging by the stairwell in the decorated home?
There was a tapestry there. Is this the same tapestry that originally he said his sister made, and then later said that he made, that he gave Larry for Christmas?
It is indeed the same tapestry.
He was showing the tapestry lady.
And not only that, but I think it's going to stay there by the staircase.
Oh, that's a nice little touch.
For the rest of the show. Also, this is the second time somebody came from Mypos and died.
Oh, wait. The second time?
Yaya Biki.
Oh, Yaya Biki.
Yaya Biki died.
Oh, in that rocking chair. Remember the chair? Oh, my God. I forgot about that.
Sad closing through the window?
Yeah. Man, people just come from Mypos and they die when they're around Balky.
Maybe it has something to do with the Windex they're drinking.
Why were they drinking Windex? That was also weird. What did you think of the episode? You know what? I will say this. After last week's unnecessary door-to-door salesman episode, I kind of enjoyed this episode because we got Myposian traditions and people and some fun physical comedy. We got the Weekend at Bernie's shtick.
Where he opened his eyes.
There's a great blooper in there. Yes.
Weekend at Bernie's.
The titles from your gratuitousness, your superfluousness.
That was a fun running gag.
That was a great gag.
The running gag of calling him short in different ways.
The salute of just lying down on the ground to the king.
The physical comedy was fun. The little song and dance number with the king.
Ba-da-ba-da-ba-hoo. Ba-da-ba-da-ba-hoo.
Deo. So a lot of our enjoyable gags are here. There was some good wordplay and stuff like that. Balanced by the same thing we've been saying recently a lot, like holes in the plot, questions, why, a lot of whys.
Yes, why?
Where are the girls?
Yes.
But some of those can be forgiven because it was a little bit enjoyable to watch, and we get a little more insight on Myposian culture.
And Larry was king for a hot second.
He didn't want to be king. Even though he might have had his name.
Yes, unwilling. They're going to put my face on the money. Almost had him.
The whole, I do have to knock it down 1 point for the whole unbelievableness of manipulating Balky into this plan.
Yeah.
But
we got to see Larry act like Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Which is great. I am the king. I am the king.
And also the recycling of the whole toxic waste thing. But anyway.
Yeah. but it definitely better than last week. What did our listeners think?
Our listeners had
This
some
should
thoughts.
be fun.
First up, we have listener cousin Maria Khalaf, who writes, "It was so funny to notice the moment when the actor playing the king moved his eyes for a second before having to play dead again without even realizing that the camera can see him."
I mean, and
he just like blinked and lubricated his eyeballs.
Yeah, because he was sitting there, and but you know what? I love those little bloopers. I'm glad they left it in.
I bet it wasn't his mistake. I bet it was the camera.
Or the editor. Maybe the editor didn't miss it. Or do you think they see it and they're like, you know what, just leave it and it's funny.
Or the rest of the take was so good.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't do takes a lot on the show because they had a live audience. So whatever.
But I love little stuff like that in these sitcoms. Yeah. That's always fun.
Next up, we have a new cousin in our group.
Really?
Yes.
Well, let's say hello.
Cousin Jason Karinko. Hello, Cousin Jason.
Hi, Cousin Jason.
Thank you for joining us. We're so happy to have you. Everyone, welcome Cousin Jason in the group.
I've seen him posting on a couple of threads. We missed a couple in the past, Jason.
Apologies.
But we got your comments for this episode, and we thank you so much for leaving comments. It's
great to hear. We're so happy to have you. Please stick around.
Yeah.
Cousin Jason writes, "I enjoyed the extended greeting that Balki had with King Ferdinand. It just kept on going.
It's so silly and random and hilarious."
And he writes, "The king had a cool, appropriately purple costume too, though it was a tad revealing during his final fall onto Cookie."
Was it?
Well, now, Cousin Jason, you're new here, but this is a family-friendly podcast.
Oh, I see what he's talking about.
So we'll leave, so we'll leave it at your comments without much more embellishing. But yes, that was.
I was going to say it's
a family-friendly podcast.
There's clearly a bulge there. It's kind of funny. I did not notice that. Good eyes, Jason.
Good eyes,
I didn't notice that the first time, but it's bulge. Oh my God. It's pretty obvious now that I'm looking at it. Okay. That's great.
So it was a well-endowed king, I suppose.
Yeah. That's why Cookie's face is like, what's going on here? Okay.
Cookie's like, catch. Did you die or are you happy to see me? Yeah. Okay. Cousin Jason also writes, "No mention of the girls in this episode. They're all living in this new house, but just happen to be out of town when the king of Mypos arrives."
They missed the big one.
Well, at least Lydia got an invitation.
Right. She can tell the girls, "Oh my God, you missed it. There was a man, he died. He was flirting on me and then he died later." And I could have been the queen.
And Mr. Gorpley has nothing to say about any of this. Usually he's got commentary.
And Gorpley's just there for the free food and drink, right? So,
next up we have listener cousin Pam Hitchcock, who writes, "First, let's get this pesky little detail out of the way. Doesn't Mypos choose its ruler through line of succession? We know that Balki was 986th in line from a few seasons back.
That's right.
Very good memory. Well, as we have, this can be explained like we've explained other things. Maybe the succession rules change based
marriage,
on circumstance.
like the marriage rituals.
Like the marriage rituals. Yeah. Maybe it's just an inconsistency. Maybe the succession rules change based on how the king dies, or I don't know. Or maybe in America, I don't know. Who knows?
No, it doesn't matter. They don't care.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
That's what it comes down to.
She also writes, "Just throwing this out there, but shouldn't the Speaker of the Hut be de facto king, at least until they get back to Mypos to figure things out? No, tradition is tradition. Whoever touches the king first is the king."
That was the rule that was written in crayon in their constitution. Yes. That's what they're going to adhere to.
Why did King Ferdinand come all the way from Mypos to be Grand Marshal of an obscure parade? Very good question.
It's a very Myposian thing to do, though, I think.
It is. It's probably a big deal. It's obscure for Chicago and for the Midwest, but for Mypos is a big deal.
Yeah.
Even the Speaker of the Hut came. And shouldn't the king have a bodyguard or two?
Yeah, he comes by himself, right? The king of Mypos just shows up by himself. Did he just get out of the taxi? No entourage?
They can't afford all that.
No.
You know, that happens in real life too. Like, I feel like sometimes big deal people from other countries show up
for these you're just here by yourself?
Small and also for small town events, or what we would consider not a big event. Anyway. She writes, "What if the king had just fallen on the floor without touching anyone to start with?"
See, now I want to know what it says about that. That's a good question.
they were no, but it's not about who catches him. It's the first person to
touch him. So it doesn't matter. He can fall to the floor. Whoever touches him next will be king. Yes. Right. Okay. We cleared that up. I'm so glad.
Cousin Pam writes, they were dragging him around all evening to whoever they thought was a suitable candidate. And the guests barely gave the oddness a second glance. They didn't want to intervene. Yeah, we talked about that. And then Balky and Larry didn't get who they wanted, but they were fine with Cookie.
Listen, sometimes you got to roll with the plan. You just got to roll with whatever happened. The people are looking. I think
the main objective was just for it not to be Larry.
Yes.
But like, what if Larry could have just like hatched this plan without Balky to make Balky the king or something?
Oh, yeah.
And not let him in.
No, but then you wouldn't have the weekend at Bernie's moment.
That's right.
But the people there were like, you noticed them looking a lot like, what's going on over here? And then they're just like, whatever. They go back to talking
more punch, please.
Yes. More blue Windex, please. The Windex here is delicious. Have you tried the Windex?
Have you tried the cocktails? Cousin Pam enjoyed all the various Mayposi and greetings, as did we. She wonders why no one gave the king CPR.
Yeah, you could have revived him right away. They didn't even try.
Wonder what was happening to him. He was just dead.
A man collapses on you. You lay him down and you try CPR.
Yeah,
what are you doing?
You call 911 or something. She says lots of physical comedy made me realize how much I missed it. Yes, we haven't had this level of physical comedy in a while. It wasn't all good, but I'll take it.
I'm with you. Yeah. With you, cousin Pam.
She writes, fun fact, it's legal to raise livestock in your yard in Chicago.
Yeah, you can get chickens. Maybe a cow or two or goat. Yeah.
She says, it really wasn't a very good episode, but it had its moments, and I'm relieved it wasn't outright horrible.
That's all we want. In
that spirit, I'm going to give 5.25 Baby Babkas. That's
closer.
The positive scale.
Oh, that's the positive. 5 and a quarter Baby
specific,
Babkas.
5.25. Yeah, 5 and a quarter Baby
But
Babkas.
I think what she says there is all we can hope for every episode moving forward. It has its moments, and I'm relieved it wasn't outright horrible.
No, it wasn't horrible. It was cute.
That's all I expect moving forward.
And finally, we have listener cousin Whitney Smith, who also wonders what happened to the line of succession stuff and Balky being 986th heir to the throne.
Yep. No, they forgot about
that. Along with the women with beards, which was part of that episode back in season 4. And she's like, this was funny. She writes, was a neuralizer used on us to erase our memories? Neutralizer? And forget the key piece of information, just like it was forgotten that Larry was supposed to be a photographer.
Yeah, but then he transitioned.
But he was so dead set on that career as a photographer, to be a famous photographer.
He's not a very good investigative journalist.
About it.
He got a couple of
What
cases,
happened to the photographs?
I don't know.
She agrees that King Ferdinand traveling to America, all the way to America to be a grand marshal in a livestock parade is not the best or strongest plot or reason for him to come to America. And why doesn't he have bodyguards or servants and stuff to come with him? And why did the Speaker of the Hut have to come? Especially since they weren't they had an argument. But they had an argument like on the way or something. Anyway, a lot of things that don't make sense. We agree. Yep. But I think the speaker was the servants or subordinate that came with him.
Possibly.
And maybe they just like split for the day and were like, I'll meet you there later. And he showed up by himself. She also wonders, where are the girls? Although she's not complaining because Cousin Whitney does not like the episodes with the girls in it. And as we noted, Cousin Whitney also notes this was another episode where they're pushing the raciness with Lydia flirting with the dead king. And then...
Well, she didn't know he was dead, but nobody...
But they're pushing the whole, like, a lot of things because of Weekend at Bernie's. Anyway, Cousin Whitney wonders how Larry would be as King of Meepos. You saw the greed monster come out when they were talking about putting his face on the
He would not be good King of Meepos.
No,
I would not. No. I would not let him do that.
He would be frantic and panicky and all that stuff. Finally, she concludes another episode that was full of questions and just horrible.
Not a
horrible.
Fan. Yes. Better than last week.
She was not a fan, but it was better than last week's.
But yes, full of questions.
Yeah, so basically our listeners were kind of thinking all the same things we were.
Don't Be Ridiculous was not said.
Of course I have. Don't be ridiculous.
And Bucky's photo is right on. Dimitri's photo is
still in a photo. You'd think for King of Meepos, Dimitri would be there in the fluff and with like a Meeposian outfit on or something like that.
To greet the king.
Greet the king.
Yeah, it's good to be the king.
The Dimitri intern has already...
I think they went home for the day.
Well, I think they went home for the rest of the series. I think they just quit when the show... I think they just quit. Like no more.
Slash their budgets. It's fine.
Okay, now here we are officially at PS Today, also known as Perfect Strangers Today, which is when we discuss could we redo this episode today and what things would have to change. Is it even a good idea?
See, like I said, without Weekend at Bernie's context. If you do this now, it's like a really dark and weird
you know how they're
idea.
remaking all the movies now? If they remade Weekend at Bernie's, this would be
that gets popular
an appropriate thing to do.
They're remaking Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead also.
And a spin-off of Ferris Bueller, as we talked about. Yeah.
There's another Beverly Hills Cop coming out. There's a Crow movie reboot coming out. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of remakes. There's Ghostbusters coming out. So, could you do Weekend at Bernie's? You don't see this kind of...
you mentioned this earlier, that Weekend at Bernie's itself wouldn't necessarily be a hit anymore because it's like people would have a problem with...
Oh my God, people are just too uptight for laughing at using a dead body for laughs.
Yeah, with desecrating a dead body like that. So maybe not so much. Also, there's a lot of there was back then too, but there's a lot of death and stuff. Bad stuff happening in the world, so I just think people wouldn't like it that much.
Well, so then could you do this plot at all? Like, I like the idea of the King of Meepos. We get to meet him.
Yeah, probably not, though, unless that remake comes out.
How would you... I don't know.
What if Line of Succession... What if he got dethroned for some other reason? Like a spoof off of like an impeachment or something.
Oh.
And something happened without involving him dying. And it happened to happen while he was in America for this livestock parade. They could maybe do it that way.
Or he could still die and one of them would have to dress up as the king and pretend to be.
Yeah, sure.
And then pretend to die.
Sure.
Instead of using the actual body.
Yeah.
Like, it was funny then, but like watching it now, I'm like, this seems really just weird. With this dead body.
It's dark. The whole thing is dark.
But Weekend at Bernie's in the late 80s was a huge...
And you'd have to update the search joke, and you'd have to
search joke would be an Altoids joke.
And Tennille reference.
Yes, with some other like
Justin Bieber or something. Yeah.
Just anything else people do at karaoke.
I mean, maybe. You'd have to change quite a bit, so I'd give it like
a Taylor Swift reference.
A middle PS Today score. Yeah. You'd have to replay. You could do it. You'd have to rewrite quite a bit.
Yeah, it would take a little tweaking,
and you'd have to explain where the girls are.
No, you don't. Nobody cares. Maybe the girls will join us next week, listener, as the cousins possibly find out that their house is haunted.
Maybe Whoopi Goldberg will also join us. Because there's a ghost in the house.
Is Patrick Stewart and
Patrick Swayze.
Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore are involved in any of this?
Yeah.
Ghost. Of course, it's like a haunted castle. It's huge.
It's a man. Yeah.
Definitely somebody died in there.
Definitely ghosts.
Oh my God, there's ghosts in that house.
Yeah,
that should be fun. That's next week, though. In the meantime, listener, if you want another way to support the show, you can support it with actual Dig Does with Cousin Larry's face on there. Maybe not that, but real money. We'll take real money. We'll take virtual tips. You can buy us a virtual coffee on our website. danceofjoypod.com/support.
You said we'll take real money. You can buy us a virtual coffee. That's not real money. It's just the idea of
coffee is digital money.
Yeah.
But it's another way to support the show, to help the show keep going every week. We appreciate
We need all the support we can get to finish this out. And we are committed to make it through the end this year.
I'm just looking forward to the 2-parter this season, and then we'll see what happens. But these shows are getting rough. They're not in the apartment.
Also, we're going to need a couple virtual coffees to get our 2-person JCS off the ground.
Absolutely. We're going to crowdfund
our JCS. We can
G-Square Superstar.
As we sit right here, we're very close to the Skokie Theater, who might be a good venue
We'll be
to
touring
put on
a local library near you.
Yes. Yeah. Oh my God, that would be so fun.
Or just out in the alley.
Only matinees on the weekends. Yeah.
Any cafe shop. You do it in cafes. You do it in bookstores.
Let us know.
I don't have bookstores.
And one way you can let us know if you would love to see our show is to contact us. And there's many, many ways to do that. For one, you can start by visiting our website. It's completely free to visit and poke around on. It's danceofjoypod.com. And from there, you can find out where to find us on any of our social media accounts. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Send us a note. Tell us if you would also follow us. Follows go a long way. We love to have followers. But you can also send us a note. Tell us if you have ever marionetted a dead body in your life, or whether you want to see our two-person show. You can also just leave us a voicemail message. There's a button right there on the main page of the website. Just press it and talk to us. We'd love to hear your voice. Or you can send us an old-fashioned electronic mail message at danceofjoypod@gmail.com. It's so old-fashioned, it even comes with tassels on it. From that website, you can also do us a huge, huge, huge favor and go to all the places where this podcast is streaming and just hit subscribe and like and maybe even leave us a rating and review. All that stuff is very easy and free to do, and it helps us a lot. But Imran, what is the most important thing our listeners should do?
Always wear the appropriate loincloth when greeting royalty. You don't want to upset them. You want to be respectful.
Yes.
No, the most important thing you can do, share this show with the king of your block.
Share the show with the speaker of your hut.
The speaker of your hut. Share the show with the Windex.
Just talk about us. Salesman. That's all we want.
Spread it around.
The best therapy for us is just talk about us. Word of mouth goes a long way, and it really helps us out. Yeah. Just like wearing our merch to the Costco will help us out.
Whoa, you get a lot of eyeballs on it.
I always wear my Dance of Joy hoodie to Costco. That's our show for today. Now we are so happy.
Now we are so happy. We do the dance of joy. Hey, 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 hey.